Welcome to Northstar vs. the World, part 3 in my now 9-part series going over every Titan's interaction with every other Titan. Right now, Northstar is probably in the best spot she's ever been in. Because of the Ion nerf and the introduction to Monarch, a Titan that has no defensive abilities, Northstar has more of a foothold in the meta than she ever has before. Almost all of Northstar's damage comes from her plasma railgun, so being good with Northstar can sometimes depend on just how well you can aim it. That takes practice, and practice is the best thing you can do to get better at a Titan other than watch these videos, of course. So my best advice for Northstar especially is to just try to get better with her railgun if you're having trouble. The other general tip I have for Northstar is to make sure you aim your cluster missile at the ground or at a wall. Don't aim it directly at a Titan unless that Titan is Legion. I've already mumbled on for long enough, so let's jump into the first Titan, Ion. Ion has your primary on her shoulder. Luckily it doesn't do as much damage now, and she can't use it as much as you can, but you still need to be wary of it. This fight is about cover and you getting snipes on her. You're going to want to stay behind cover and try to peek with that railgun. You're going to need to lead your shots, remember, so just be sure you hit as much as you can. Notice that the Ion's moving forward now and I don't want that, so I'm going to put down a cluster missile to do damage to her and keep her away from me. She also gets caught in my tether in the process, which ends up doing a lot of damage to her. Notice I'm out of dashes, so rushing for an execution right then would have been suicide. As a review, use cover as much as you can and use cluster missiles when you can if she gets close to you. Make sure you put down those tethers as well. I do not recommend using VTOL hover in this fight. Now it's time for Scorch, and Northstar is Scorch's counter. Scorch relies on being close to someone and using area of denial on the ground. You are the sniper Titan, so you don't have to get close to him, plus you can fly. This fight is about maintaining distance, using your VTOL hover when you can, and dealing damage to Scorch over time. Do not push Scorch if he's low health for that execution, because if you do, he's going to punish you. This fight is very simple for Northstar, and it's almost a joke in some cases, but you still need to treat Scorch as a real threat. In tight spaces that favor Scorch, like I showed in my last video, you're going to be wanting to use cover as much as you can. Peek snipe him, use your VTOL hover. Maintain your distance. As a review, maintain your distance, use your VTOL hover, and put snipes into him. He's the perfect target for plasma railgun and you can just fly above his fire. This fight should be fairly easy for you. This next fight favors Ronin, and they're usually decided fairly quickly, but that does not mean these fights are completely unwinnable. Cluster missiles and tethers are your friend, make sure you use your abilities. Now, Ronin is fast and he is hard to hit, but you don't need to hit him many times. Don't panic. Carefully plan, lead, and land your shots. As long as you can land 3 or 4 of them, you will be fine. In LTS or any other team game mode where you have Titans, I recommend backing off and trying to find teammates to help you. In review, your abilities, especially Cluster Missile, are your friend. Don't panic and spam uncharged shots. You need to charge them. Remember, Ronin doesn't have much health either, so you only need a few good hits to take him down. Don't just stand around, you need to keep moving. You have those dashes too. This fight favors Tone, but as a Northstar you can dodge Tone's rockets. Watch how I time my dashes against Tone's rockets. It may take you some practice, but eventually you will be able to avoid most of the damage that Tone can put out. In this fight you're going to want to stick to cover as much as you can, just as like the Ion fight. But you want to fight Tone from a little bit of range, a little bit farther than you would usually fight other Titans. That gives you better time to be able to dodge her rockets. Now, I have a personal preference in this fight. I like to put cluster missiles on Tone's particle wall because I believe that Tones usually leave when you do. Other Northstar mains who are also Gen 10 with Northstar disagree with me, so it's up to your personal preference if you want to do so. If you do it and it works for you, go ahead. You'll see that there and other times in this fight I've missed some shots that I shouldn't have missed. That makes this fight go on a little bit longer than it usually would, and the 40mm damage does add up over time. Me missing shots in this fight is my fault, and it's because I was tired at the time of recording this. Versus most tones, you won't have taken as much damage as I just did. As a review, like Ion, you want to stick to cover, but you also want to keep moving a little bit as well. Learn to dodge Tone's rockets. That's where a majority of her damage comes from, so if you can learn to avoid them, you'll do well. Cluster Missile is your friend, and Tone gives you a perfect target to put it on, but if you prefer not to put it there, you can put it on other walls or the floor. They'll still do good damage over time. So now it's time for Legion. Against Legion, you're going to want to find some solid cover and make sure you can deal damage to Legion over time. You don't want trees. This is because if Legion power shot to you, all he needs is one part of you in any part of his reticle and it will do full damage. That's the way power shot works. So now I'm going to go ahead and get behind cover here. Legion is big and slow, so he's a hard Titan to miss. And he's a very hard Titan to miss. This fight is about using your cover as much as you can and dealing steady damage over time. Legion has a lot of health, but you can also do a lot of damage. Remember though, you can't get caught out in the open because you don't have much health, and Legion puts out the highest DPS of any Titan in the game, especially with his power shot. Most people these days are running Hidden Compartment, so if you're left out in the open for very long, you might find yourself with 2 power shots in the side of your skull. Notice that I'm not letting the Legion see me for a very long period of time. I'm just peeking and getting shots where I can. As a review for Legion, make sure you're not out of cover for any extended periods of time where you're going to get power shot and lose a third of your health. And then you're going to get power shot again and lose another third of your health. You want to get behind some solid cover, and like you did with Tone, you want to use that cover as much as you can. Peeking is important. You're the Sniper Titan, don't forget that. As usual, the equal 1v1 comes last. And I'll be honest, this fight mainly boils down to your gun skill with the plasma railgun. You're going to want to be using cover, because if you're not using cover and you're not moving around, you're an easy target for Northstar to be able to hit you. Use your cluster missiles and your tethers to lock her down and try to predict her movement. Dashing right after shooting is good practice because it makes you unpredictable. Shooting while dashing is difficult because you're moving very fast and the other Titan is too. I somewhat recommend VTOL in this fight, not necessarily. It makes you a very slow target that's easy to hit, but it can also give you some good angles, especially when the other Northstar is flying as well. The Northstar is doomed, and because I have some dashes, I'm going to try to go for an execution, but I don't see her tether on the ground. Now I'm going to back up and get back into cover because I'm left out in the open, she'll be able to shoot me fairly easily. Right now, it's not a good idea to push for an execution because she's far away and I'm not full on my dashes. She'll just make me take damage. Now I have my dashes back, I'm going to try to get close again, but she's not close enough to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and rely on my damage to take her out. As a review against Northstar, you're going to want to keep moving all the time. Or you're going to want to stay in cover and get in a peek snipe fight, which I don't necessarily recommend. Your plasma railgun is going to be your main source of damage in this fight, like it is in all the fights. But it's more important here to land your shots, because it only takes 4 or 5 shots to be able to kill a Northstar. Just practice with Northstar's railgun and you'll usually be able to win in these 1v1s. One last tip for Northstar, Flight Core actually doesn't suck. It does the second most damage of any core in the game. All you need to do is lead your shots and aim down sights.
Alright, we gave up. We got the win. Now we can make happy hour.
That concludes Northstar vs. the World. the third part in my 9-part series going over every Titan's interaction with every other Titan. Next week we're doing Ronin, who's a bit more complicated than Northstar is. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. See you next week.